Faith, when you really look at it, isn't just a personal belief system. It's a framework that discourages doubt, filters information, and limits thought. Not always intentionally, but effectively. And that's exactly what makes it powerful and dangerous. Most people don't see faith this way. It's usually portrayed as something beautiful, something comforting, a source of hope in hard times. But that's only part of the story. The other part is more complicated and a lot less discussed, because faith isn't just about what people believe, it's about what they're taught not to question. At its core, faith asks people to accept ideas without evidence, not because there is no evidence, but because the evidence isn't the point. The point is loyalty, trust, surrender. Faith tells you to believe, regardless. And that's where it becomes more than belief. It becomes a tool. See, when you're taught from childhood that doubting is a weakness, that questioning is sinful, that obedience is virtuous, you're not just forming a worldview, you're training your brain to bypass critical thought in favor of emotional loyalty. And when that mechanism is embedded early, it's hard to even notice it's there. Now people often confuse this with tradition or culture, as if questioning faith is the same as disrespecting your roots. But these systems weren't just passed down like recipes or folk songs. They were enforced, codified, embedded into laws and education and daily rituals. And at the heart of that enforcement was always one message: do not question this. Faith has often been used as a shield, to avoid scrutiny, to avoid contradiction, and to silence dissent. And when institutions realize that they can link faith with morality, now you have something really potent. Because now it's not just, I believe this, it's, if you don't believe this, you're a bad person. This is one of the oldest tricks in the book. Control the narrative, then moralize it. And it works. People will defend their beliefs not just intellectually, but emotionally, as if you're attacking their dignity, because that's how deeply it's tied to their identity. It's important to be clear here. Not everyone who believes is trying to control others. Many people just want meaning. They want community. They want to feel less alone. But the structure of faith systems, especially organized ones, often works in ways that prioritize control over clarity. Take the concept of divine authority, the idea that some truths are off-limits for debate because they come from a higher source. That puts a stop sign in your head before you even begin to think critically. Why analyze when the answer is already decided? Why research when questioning is framed as rebellion? It's not that people are lazy, it's that the system is designed to discourage the process in the first place. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Studies in cognitive psychology have shown that the brain tends to conserve energy by relying on shortcuts, heuristics. Faith taps into that. It simplifies reality. It offers certainty. And the moment you lock into certainty, the need for deeper analysis fades away. We all do this in different ways, but religious faith institutionalizes it. In many communities, questioning your faith is treated the same as betraying your family or even your very self. That's not an accident. That's the result of generations of social conditioning. Doubt becomes taboo, not because it's dangerous to others, but because it's dangerous to the system. And let's talk about that system. Religion has historically been intertwined with power. Monarchs claimed divine right. Clergy dictated law. Dissenters weren't just wrong, they were heretics. And that legacy hasn't disappeared. In many parts of the world today, religious authorities still hold enormous sway over politics, education, and personal freedoms. When beliefs are immune to criticism, those who hold them become immune to accountability. That's not a coincidence. That's structure. It's an environment that protects itself by placing its ideas above inspection. This doesn't just affect the religious, it affects entire societies. When public decisions are based on dogma instead of dialogue, everybody pays the price. Even those who don't subscribe to the belief system. Policies are shaped not by evidence or reason, but by what someone thinks a god wants. And often, that someone has power. Let's pause here. What's really being protected in these faith structures? Is it truth, or is it stability? Control. A shared identity that doesn't allow for deviation. The fear of losing that structure can be so intense that even mild criticism feels like a threat. Not because the ideas are weak, but because the foundation is rigid. You can't bend what was built to be unbendable. Faith doesn't adapt easily. It tends to resist evolution. Scientific progress, seen as arrogance. Moral shifts, framed as corruption. Skepticism, labeled as cynicism. This is where thought control comes in. When you teach people that the highest virtue is obedience to invisible authority, that the greatest sin is doubt, that answers are already given and must never be touched, you're not encouraging growth. You're managing perception. You're replacing exploration with discipline. Now, add in guilt, shame, fear of punishment, fear of being cast out. And the control isn't just external anymore. It's internalized. People monitor their own thoughts, censor their own questions, and even punish themselves mentally for wondering the wrong thing. That's not faith as personal meaning. That's faith as mental surveillance. And it's reinforced by community, by repetition, by rituals that slowly erase the line between belief and identity. So if you stop believing, who even are you anymore? And that question keeps people quiet, keeps them inside, keeps them afraid to leave. There are people who never share their doubts with anyone, not even their closest friends, because they know what's at stake. Not just disagreement, but isolation, rejection, even abuse. That's not freedom of belief. That's fear in disguise. The beauty of thought, real independent thought, is that it evolves, it adjusts. It can say, I was wrong. It can say, I don't know. Faith, when weaponized as control, leaves no room for that. It demands consistency, not because the ideas make sense, but because the system needs stability. Look through history, and you'll see the pattern repeat. From the Inquisition, to the censorship of scientists, to modern theocracies and cults, faith has often been the pretext for restricting thought. Not because truth is sacred, but because questions are dangerous, and yet, the most honest thinkers, the ones who push humanity forward, are always the ones willing to question everything, especially the things that seem untouchable. That's not rebellion, that's progress. Faith, in its purest form, may be about hope, but when it becomes a shield against inquiry, a substitute for reason, and a tool for obedience, it stops being about truth, and it starts being about control. Not everyone who believes is controlled, but when belief itself is built to resist challenge, it creates the conditions for control to thrive, quietly, persistently, invisibly. Thought control isn't just about censorship or propaganda. Sometimes it's dressed in holiness, wrapped in tradition, sung in hymns, whispered in prayer. And that's what makes it so effective. Because the most powerful kind of control is the kind people don't even realize they're under.